I'll admit it, I got blindsided by a blindside level talent at offensive tackle. And let's talk a little bit about a DE whose name sounds a little bit more like Gma. Can I get an AK?
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. We are available on all of your podcasting platforms as well as visually on YouTube. And you can find me personally on Twitter at AllDayOState. And today we brought you by Bird Dogs. You all know it's the bee's knees of all clothing brands out there. All right. So, yeah, sometimes assuming, well, we all know what assuming can do, right? A fun little age-old adage I always heard was assuming makes an ass out of you and me. And I assumed a couple players were going elsewhere. Well, luckily, I've been wrong once before, and I'm okay with being wrong again. The first name that we got to bring up today, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be Chima Chineke, weak side defensive end out of Plano East High School in Plano, Texas. 6'5", 232, right here, right now. That's not the most impressive part to me. The most impressive part to me is the fact that he's a multi-sport athlete. You can go find highlights of him playing basketball. You can obviously go find lots of highlights of him playing the fun game of football, but you will also see him participate in track and field, and you will also see him potentially participate in some fun little wrestling type stuff, all right? This dude is a jack of all trades that could play each and every one of these sports at a multitude of levels. When you see this new 3-3-5 defense that defense coordinator Bryan Nardo has cooking in Stillwater, Oklahoma, you oftentimes wonder, are the defensive ends going to be able to show out like you typically see oftentimes out of an even front? And right now, Mr. Chima Chineke is currently playing in an even man front for defensive linemen. But what he's going to be able to provide in Stillwater is nothing short of amazing. When it comes to talent, right, it's boundless. But when it comes to the coaches out on the road, right, we all know that Coach Bryan Nardo is like a recruiting whisperer, a guy that's going to be able to get more living rooms than some of us potentially ever could have thought possible. Now, the thing that kind of threw me for a loop here was Iowa. He's already visited Iowa, and I know that the visit to Iowa went very, very, very well. He had a very good time. He liked it. I think a lot of people really thought he was going to go the Iowa direction, as did I. But you've also seen players in the game kind of step up recently, like Texas Tech. Texas Tech, there's a lot of articles you can find that says that, he's probably Lubbock bound. Yes, he's been to Vanderbilt. Yes, he's been to KU. Yes, he's got plenty of offers out there, but it does seem to be a two-way race from what I'm gathering right now between Oklahoma State and Iowa. He's going back to Iowa today to give the Hawkeyes another opportunity to potentially close the deal. And I don't really see it. Only because if you have a relationship established with Coach Greg Richmond, which, by the way, I have to add, shout out to Big Game Boomer, all right? Sometimes he puts out some really cool lists. Sometimes he puts out some lists that really make you scratch your head and wonder what in tarnation he woke up drinking today. But he put out the top 50 defensive line coaches in the country. Greg Richmond was on that list. And the beauty of that is he's only going to grow higher and higher and higher into that list. One of the things you often hear about Oklahoma State is the continuity within the coaching staff. So for some people who say that that doesn't matter, I think players like this are a decent indication as that mindset being a little bit off. It does matter, right? If your son, daughter is going to go on to play collegiate athletics, that's basically an extension of what you want your young man or young woman to end up developing into. So where you send them to college is important. The positions that they're getting put in college are going to be important. And Greg Richmond is a name that will become a household everyday utility item in the recruiting realm in due time, right? And again, Coach Nardo, he's the whisperer. And now this young man has had the opportunity to get with Coach Gundy, to see the new revitalized, rejuvenated Cowboy culture that we all know landed us most of the recruits that have really come to Stillwater. The continuity and the culture are two things that you've heard over and over again for a long time. Everything needs a little spark, right? Everything in life needs to be revitalized at times. We are going through that right now, and I do think Coach Nardo is a very, very big part of that. But just like the guys like Landon Cleveland, who we know are out there on the recruiting path for Oklahoma State, which is why he decided to publicly come out and say, I'm not going to visit Texas anymore because I don't need to. He is bought in hook, line, and sinker. Why? Probably because Coach Nardo is bought in hook, line, and sinker. Why? Probably because it starts at the top. And the top realized there needed to be a couple changes made. Not drastic, not a lot. It does help when you have people like Xavier Benson step up into the locker room and grab a hold of everybody and help everybody see that what happened last year cannot happen again. Last year was the worst season that we've had since 2005. Now, there are a lot of people out there that would say, you know what, 7 wins, that's admirable. 7 wins, that's reasonable. In Stillwater, Oklahoma, ladies and gentlemen, 7 wins should not be acceptable. And they know that, which is why we're out on the trail the way we are right now, which is why we're creating inroads with people like Mr. Chineke. And although I love to razz on the Pac-12, and I love to give Utah and Stanford a hard time for pretending that their nose goes higher than the stratosphere, and then they fall back on the idea that the AAU accreditational status is going to be the end-all, be-all in college sports, even though we know this is becoming more and more and more like a business. So it's a business decision that these young men have to make. I don't mind being wrong occasionally. Okay, I was a little bit wrong here because the academia side of things do matter to this family. The academia side of the equation does play a factor right here. So is Chima Chineke going to come to Oklahoma State just because of academia? No. But when you're looking at all of the factors that he's looking at, you can talk about all the coaches. We have talked about a lot of the coaches. You can talk about some of the people that are out there in the recruiting analyst realm. But what we haven't talked about, and what doesn't get talked about enough, is there's only one body by glass system in America. There's only one strength and conditioning coach in the United States of America in collegiate athletics that gets paid $1 million, and that is Rob Glass. So if you want your young man to come to a college where you know the academia side of things is going to be upheld, you know that turning boys into young men is part of the fabric ingrained in everybody and everything in every building, mixed in with the idea that you know you're going to develop more so than almost anybody else. Oklahoma State is famous for sending unheralded type of guys into the NFL. Imagine what we can do with guys that continue to come in more ready than ever. And again, if you're already 6'5", 245 pounds, it's not like you have a blank canvas. That's already a work in progress. That is already something to build upon. And when you take something like that, something like this young man with the way he plays the game, I think we're in for a surprise this season. And switching to an odd man front is not going to be an issue. Why? Probably because of the athleticism. Probably because of the multi-sport capabilities that we know that he has. And then you grab the academic side I mean, regardless of, again, how much flack I like to throw the Pac-12's way because they're a sinking ship, at the end of the day, I am aware that if you do not have a good academic standing, it's not going to be advantageous for all recruits. So this would be a big get, in my opinion. This would be a get that would almost put us over the top. This is a position of need. All right. We know that Nathan Latu is set to move on after the season. We also know that Cody Waltersheet is an upperclassman likely to move on after this season. We've got some depth. I really, really, really like Deshaun Brown. I think he's going to be a great one in Stillwater eventually. But he's got to get into that role. Colin Oliver obviously slides back to that linebacker position. Justin Kirkland and Colin Clay are going to do fine in the middle, beyond fine, actually better than fine. So what we need is a couple more defensive ends to really excel the athleticism for the coming years. And this is a guy that will do it. Wherever he goes, they're getting somebody who, in my opinion, will be an all-conference performer. No ifs, ands, buts about it. Because the way that he tracks the ball, his first step, the way that he can disengage, the way that he can track the ball, come from behind, strip, force fumbles, all of that, it takes a toll on the body. So to do it over and over and over and over again, and then apply the same level of ability to a multitude of sports, these are things that Mike Gundy and Rob Glass have historically done very, very, very well with, which is exactly why I'm saying Oklahoma State is the best fit, the absolute best fit for Chima. You got to end up in Stillwater, brother. You really do. You really do. You want to know what else you should do, as well as everybody else out there? Get yourself hooked up with some Bird Dogs. It's the bee's knees of all clothing brands for a reason. I know you've heard me say it. You've also heard me say you can walk in them, swim in them, fight in them, sleep in them, do it all over again in them, because it's 100% true. Guys, this is a product that sends you stuff. They didn't say a word. All they said was, hey, we need your sizes. We're going to send you this product. And then you decide what to talk about. Well, I can tell you, I've spent a countless amount of money on being comfortable, because comfortability is of utmost importance to me and my little prosthetic friend back there. So I legitimately, need to be in a pair of shorts that you can do anything with. If you want to go to the golf course, you want to go to a dinner party, you want to go to slumber parties, swimming party, it really doesn't matter. And that's the point. That's not your granddad's khaki anymore, ladies and gentlemen. And they've also got the boxers built right in, which is why you can do everything in them, rinse, wash, and repeat. So do yourself a favor, go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege right now to get yourself hooked up with a free Yeti style tumbler with your Bird Dogs purchase. Again, that is Locked On College, all one word, birddogs.com/lockedoncollege to get this free Yeti style tumbler with your next purchase. And I do implore you afterwards, hit me up. I love reading these testimonials and seeing everything that everyone else has to say about them. So hit me up and let me know how your Bird Dogs is treating you after you get the order in. All right, so that's the defensive side of the ball. We know where we stack up defensively is pretty daggone good. We also know that, as you see in the ticker down there, everybody should have their alarm set tomorrow. I do know around 11 a.m. there's going to be some kickoffs, and those kickoffs are going to lead to some questions that we'll hammer at the end of the episode. But real quick, we got to jump to the other side of the ball. And I just mentioned Justin Kirkland, the defensive tackle that I firmly believe will be most likely a first-team all-conference performer this season. Obviously, health is pretty important. But aside from that, Justin Kirkland is an animal. People on the offensive line have a hard time stopping him. Sometimes we have to put him up against people like Colin Clay just to be able to get good reps in. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we might have a freshman, if we get him, that could step on the campus next year and instantaneously be able to give somebody like Justin Kirkland and Colin Clay a formidable foe lined up from across from him. Okay, so much like Mr. Chineke, that I assumed was likely to be an Iowa Hawkeye, I also assumed that Chauncey Johnson was going to end up in Arkansas. Yeah, Alabama's on him too. Yeah, Mizzou's on him too. Yeah, K-State's on him too. Obviously, we're on him, offered. But, a lot of the prognostications out there have him going to Arkansas State instead of Mizzou. But now he's made a little bit of name for himself at not only our camp, he made a very big name for himself at the Arkansas camp. So I'm actually pretty surprised that they haven't given him a legitimate committable offer yet. But hats off to Memphis, right? They jumped in on the party as well. But just like we talked about Mr. Chineke's athletic abilities and his multi-sport prowess, here we are yet again. This is the bread and butter of what we do in Stillwater, Oklahoma, which is another reason why I think Chauncey Johnson, goodness me, blah, 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 sorry, words are hard for me sometimes. I think he's a perfect fit for Stillwater. And when you look at the different publications, right, I've seen one publication has him at 6'4", 303 pounds. One publication has 6'5", 305 pounds. One publication has 6'6", 310 pounds. All right, so we can let's say that we're going to split the difference. We'll say he's 6'5", 308, right? How's that feel for everybody? So is that size perfect for what we're looking for? Well, yeah. Because even if, let's say he's the 6'6", 310 guy. Picture somebody 6'6", 310 running a sub 5'3", 40. And then picture that same dude running a 4'6" shuttle. It's easy to potentially look at that guy and notice him throwing up almost 300-pound power cleans, 460-pound squats, 300-pound bench presses. Yeah, you might expect all of that. But that 4'6" in the shuttle, you don't expect that out of an offensive tackle. And like I said, I got blindsided, not only because I thought he was bound and determined to end up at Arkansas, but also it's a movie reference for a reason. Ladies and gentlemen, I implore you to go check out this young man's film. He's got one that's like 14, 15 minutes long of just straight highlights. And I understand the highlights are just that word, highlights. But usually, highlights aren't 14, 15 minutes. Usually, there's not highlights of the same dude in multiple sports at the same source. Usually, when you see that, it's a pretty good indication of what you got coming to you. He's an all-Arkansas prep underclassman. He graded out at the top 81% in Arkansas football with 67 pancakes. That's partially why his highlight film is so big, because he's so daggone productive. Now, I do know that he's a big fan of Coach Cody Kennedy, but I also know that he's a big fan of going somewhere that's not only going to put his ability to good use, but that respects his time. Maybe Arkansas does, but I haven't seen them give him a committable offer yet. So maybe Arkansas thinks that maybe they're just a little bit too big for this fellow's britches. Well, you know what? Come where you're wanted, come where you're needed, and come where you can get the body by glass development that nobody else in the country can offer. Does everybody have nutrition tables and all that fun jazz nowadays? Absolutely. Does everybody have certain diets and guidelines they got to go on predicated upon which position you play? Absolutely. But I just said it, and you can look it up. There's nobody else making more money in the strength and conditioning department in America than the guy right there in Stillwater. So if we're going to have the conversation about Mr. Chineke's development, then Mr. Johnson absolutely needs to be part of that same exact conversation. He reminds me a little bit of Jack Endine, another freshman on the roster at Oklahoma State this year. when we talked about his film last season. He was nasty, like absolutely nasty is the only word. That's the only word that's fitting here. I mean, heck, guys, 67 pancakes? Are you serious? Passing off is going to take a little bit of time to get adjusted to, but one-on-one, this guy throws people around like they're standing still. If he gets to the second level, no chance. Absolutely no chance. If you're a defensive end, there's not very many times where you're going to have a chance. His hands get a little outside sometimes. So obviously there's a little technique stuff he's got to work on. But his, drop step is amazing. His power is obviously undeniable. His athleticism is crazy. Play to the whistle is exactly what this guy lives for. Just like I said, Jack and Dean came in last year. Maybe a little raw, but the physicality side of things we knew was definitely not going to be an issue. How it's correlated to the college game is also not an issue because he's already pushing for playing time. I see Chauncey Johnson as being somebody in that same mold. You can coach up a lot of things. You can teach a lot of things. You can cover up some deficiencies in some people's games. You cannot teach somebody to be this level of aggressive, to be this level of nasty, right? It is something I always recall hearing in the business world is I would much rather have to reel somebody in who's trying too hard all the time than I would have to try to push somebody to do more all the time. Chauncey Johnson fits that mold, just like Jack and Dean did last year coming into Stillwater. And he's already pushing for potential playing time right now, after spring, into spring, during spring, as a true freshman. Because again, you can teach the technique stuff. You can teach how to put your hips here, your hands here, your back foot this way, what degree your feet need to be at whenever the guy's rushing outside shoulder as opposed to inside shoulder. What are some of the tells that you can read from the defense? This guy is blitzing, or is that guy blitzing? Or is he going to drop back in coverage? Or does this defensive end going to go out to the flats? There's a lot of things that you have to process. But you don't have to process destroying somebody's face into the grass. There's nothing to process there. You either got that or you don't. You want to seek out that level of aggression or you don't. Chauncey Johnson does. And Chauncey Johnson is way too good to end up at Arkansas State. I mean, I'm a little surprised there's not as much interest in Mizzou. But I would also assume that the dude wants to put himself in a position where he knows he can get better. He knows he can get bigger. He knows he can get stronger. He knows he can get faster. You can say whatever you want about Oklahoma State. But you cannot say that those things do not come in bunches in Stillwater because of Coach Glass. I think you could probably make the argument that a decent amount of Gundy's success is because of Coach Glass. And that's probably why Gundy pays him what he does. All right, so lastly, okay, let's jump in here because we got some commits coming tomorrow. But if you look at some of the potential options, it looks a little heavy at, like, let's say linebacker as one of the ones. We're in top 3, top 5 on a lot of guys, a lot of big time guys. So it begs the question, are we taking a first come, first serve type of approach? If so, the spots are going to fill up very quickly. The spots are going to start filling up tomorrow. But then it does beg the question, right? Regardless, you could throw any name out there of X, Y, Z, whoever linebacker. If we get some tomorrow, well, what does that do for the other linebackers that have us in their top 3, top 4, top 5? It could go a multitude of ways, of course. You're going to get part of the group that says, you know what? I'm still coming. I don't care how many linebackers you're bringing because I'm going to beat them out. You could get some of that. You also could get the, oh, crap, Stillwater's taking a lot of linebackers right now. Maybe I should take this path instead. And you never know. You never know what's in the mind of 17, 18-year-old kids these days. And no matter how much we try, it ain't going to happen. The landscape is different, not just of college football, but recruiting, transfers, NIL, right? You get it. So let me know down in the comments section, not only who you're hoping that we get tomorrow, what are the 3 guys you're anticipating for tomorrow? Give me a couple more that you think could be or should be guys that potentially commit tomorrow. And then also let me know what you think about the idea of, is it possible to have too many of one thing? I mean, okay, clearly it is. So let me reword it. Is it possible to have too many cooks in the kitchen? There we go. There's a better analogy, right? Because we're going to get some tomorrow. And it kind of concerns me about what happens after. Okay. Do we have enough room for all of the linebackers? I don't know. Everybody knows how insanely high I am on Gunnar Wilson. I definitely think he's a potential Malcolm Rodriguez get, and I'll stand by it. Tamarick Johnson is a very intriguing prospect at 6'3", 210 already. But, he seems to be very high on Cal. He seems to be pretty high on KU. For whatever reason, he's got Boise in the mix. Normally, I would look at somebody considering Boise as so laughable that it's not worth diving into film. I didn't do that, okay? I like Tamarick Johnson's film. I really do. I would love him to come to Stillwater, Oklahoma. I just don't know if he is going to want to be patient enough to make that happen. I think you got Jonathan Agumidu, 6'2", 220, right here, right now. I do think that Colin Oliver style of role suits him perfectly. He could potentially even bulk up, though. I mean, he could bulk up. He could get bigger. He could flex a little bit into what you would normally see out of a traditional 4-man front and even front defensive end type of guy. You could, right? So that the flex option there from Jonathan Agumidu is very intriguing. I think Brian Huff is not a complete foregone conclusion. And who doesn't want a 6'4", 221-pound linebacker? But he's very sought after, right? A lot of SEC schools are in on him. Mississippi State wants him. Arkansas wants him. I think LSU is still very interested in him. Ole Miss, Auburn. Obviously, you got a multitude of Big 12 schools that would love to earn the services of Mr. Brian Huff, but we're not out on that sweepstake either. I think even Kylan Reed. Like Kylan Reed is still somebody that's in the fold. I don't know that it's a very good indication on what direction he's going to go, but you never know, right? These kids are just that. They're kids. They're going to make decisions. They're going to change their mind. They're going to do a lot of things. So I like Kylan Reed, another 6'2", 215, 220-pound style linebacker. What that does with Bo Tate, I don't know. But getting all of them, it ain't going to happen. We're not going to get Tamarick and Agumidu and Wilson and Tate. It's not going to happen. So could any mixture of Kylan Reed or Bo Tate or Gunnar Wilson, Tamarick Johnson, could any mixture of those work? Yeah. So if you had to pick 3 linebackers, not just the 3 that you think will commit tomorrow, also keep hammering the comment section. Give me the 3 linebackers that you would take. And we might not just take 3. We might take 4, might take 5. Heck, we might take 7. Who knows? I don't know what they have up their sleeve, but versatility is important. These guys do offer a lot of versatility. Armstrong Noden, D lineman, I like it. Danny Okoye might be a little bit of wishful thinking, but we're in there. I like Malake Smith. I would love nothing more if he were to pull the trigger super early. That would make my heart happy. But again, yeah, let me know. Let me know what you think. Make sure if you liked it like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. And let me know what I could have done to make it better. Comment, share, subscribe, all that fun jazz. Y'all know the drill. All righty. That's all we're going to have for this one, ladies and gentlemen. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. And until next time, later, taters.